Welcome to episode 3 of Tuning In with Bob Lancer and
Greg Nielsen,
Dr. G.
Dr. G. That's
Great
what
to
they
see,
call me.
great to
I don't
see
call
you.
myself that. I have other things I call myself, but
Okay, well, as long as you don't call me late for dinner, I'm
that's
okay.
right. We, I'm having dinner after this, so
Okay, I ate
it's
before, but
perfect.
you're in Reno and I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah, so we got a 3 hour difference, but it's lovely.
So tell me, I have a number of things that, we want to start with a quote from Isadore.
Okay.
Usually we do a poem.
Yeah.
You read last week, so I'll read this week.
Okay. Sounds
And
good.
I want to read something from his
Oh,
wisdom book, which I understand you don't have a copy of yet.
no, I'm so glad to hear about it.
Yeah, yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah. And this is from the chapter that is called Percepton. So I'm sure you read
I do have
Percept.
a copy of that. Yeah, but I don't have the book. Mhm.
Okay. So I'm going to read a couple of paragraphs here, and then we can dive into the wisdom of tuning in. Always remember, O seeking one, on this level, awareness is God, your shield and protection from evil, your friend, companion, helpmate, guide, and true servant who will stand you in good stead all through the chaotic voyages of your day over the roaring ocean and typhoons of unbalance. The root necessity for conscious balance and alternation is as great and urgent as for breathing on this level.
Hmm.
Any comments on that, Dr.
Well,
G?
the rhythmic alternation came up again there.
Yeah.
And one thing I thought about last week after we got off, whenever it was last time, um, we talked about rhythmic alternation, go in a certain direction, do a certain amount of thing, could be almost anything. Then you realize, okay, it's time not to do that anymore. It's time to do something else that's more balancing from that. And one thing I've talked about with people and myself is I call them mini rhythms because sometimes people get really, really busy and they say, well, I don't have time for that. Of course, once you say that, you don't for sure. But some of the things, it really helped over time because a lot of people work very strenuous days and from time to time or all the time or often. And mini rhythms are things like taking 2 minutes out to do some rhythmic breathing at your desk. Uh, Take a short walk around the block. Uh, just take time out and walk around an office if you're in an office.
Mhm, mhm.
Uh, it goes on. There's endless a number of possibilities, but you can look at what can you do in a short amount of time to get a little more balance and rhythm in your life.
So what
And
would you say are the signs that tell a person it's time to alternate?
okay, I'd say one for sure is higher stress level, doing too much in too short a time. Second thing would be when you get emotionally kind of fixated, mentally emotionally fixated. And that's when you sometimes really have to pay attention because you're a lot of people kind of justify the state that they're in. They don't have to stay there. Sometimes they'll say, well, I have to work hard or I have to raise a family or I have to get the job done because the boss is on my case or I have to own a business and I have a lot on my plate. But you have to watch out for that because
Well,
you have
those are the ideas, right? The
yeah,
ideas that
yeah.
interfere with the
Hmm.
feeling level,
Yes, thank
and,
you.
with the energy level. And
Hmm.
that's the shift. That's why we call our show Tuning In, because it's
Hmm.
all about helping individuals navigate through the energy universe,
Yes.
awaken to the guidance of the energy level, which is so far superior to the intellectual level, which can
Hmm.
give you a reason to do anything,
Hmm.
right? Or a reason not to do anything. So what
Well,
we're learning how to do is tune into your feelings to
hmm.
sense when the universe is essentially giving you a red light. It's time to stop and shift and do something else, right? And there'll be a
Yes.
cycle for that something else. And then all of a sudden you notice, wow, I feel the energy and motivation to get back to that other thing.
Hmm.
I think it comes down to, though, a kind of a deeper underlying principle. The way I express it in my sessions with people is trusting that you can take good care of yourself and get away with it because if you don't take good care of yourself, you won't get away with it.
You may have to say that again.
Okay,
That's a
so
good one.
so when we look at the principle of rhythmic alternation, it's basically saying there's a time and a cycle for doing a certain activity,
Yep.
and that comes to an end. There's a cycle to it, and
Hmm.
then it's time to shift and do something else, right? Like maybe if
Yes.
you're doing something physical, it might be good
Hmm.
to go do something intellectual. If you're doing
Hmm.
something intellectual, it might be good to do something physical or maybe emotional, like listening to music or painting. But if the fundamental principle underlying it is that you can trust,
Hmm.
you can take good care of yourself and get away with it. Because if you don't take good care of yourself, you won't get away with it.
And you
Violation
get,
of limits.
yes. And of course, you get a little bit, you get a kickback. You can call it a kickback. Could be
Mhm,
a mini kickback, a minor one, a medium one, a major one,
mhm,
where you get the so-called wake-up calls along the way. So
mhm,
when you do trust and the description you just made and do that on a regular rhythmic basis, as often as you can and as you grow and
mhm,
develop, uh, yes, you can trust yourself a lot more. You can trust what's going to happen a lot more.
mhm. Yeah.
Um, as far as like, we're all working on these things. I mean, somebody asked me after all these years of reading, studying, writing, sharing, teaching, what have you discovered? A lot of things, but one of them I discovered is how much I actually intellectually know that I don't really fully apply.
Mm.
It's stunning if I really look at
Mhm.
it.
Yeah,
I've come
yeah.
a long way.
Mhm.
That's great, but
I think that part of sort of the religious training
mhm,
people get in terms of believing. They
yeah,
think if you believe in something, that's enough. You don't have to apply it. Like if I
hmm,
believe in rhythmic alternation, yeah, that makes sense. I believe in it, but that
hmm,
doesn't mean I'm actually applying it consciously in
yeah.
my daily living, you know?
It does take some sort of a epiphany of some kind uh, along the way to go, hey, wow, I'm not really doing that. I just
Yeah.
believe it. I really
Well,
think about it. I
yeah,
love it.
I remember a session with Isadore, uh,
Yeah.
which this is really kind of this show is bringing forth his legacy of his
Hmm.
work on organics, which we'll talk about in a moment. I have a question
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that. But I remember going to his house once, his apartment once for a session after studying with him. I don't remember if it was weeks or months. And I said, Isadore, I love organics, but it doesn't work.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
It doesn't work. And he said, it's because you're not applying it.
Yeah.
Thinking about it, you're talking about it, you're excited about it, you're inspired about it, and you're living unconsciously all day long.
And my laughing stems from the fact that I could apply that to myself. So I'm laughing at myself in that phase of
Sure,
life
sure.
where,
Oh,
yeah,
it was hilarious.
I
It was
couldn't wait to talk to people about it.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, I had spread the word.
Yeah, that was me. I wanted to go on a rooftop and just
Yeah.
scream it out to everybody, change your life, here's how. But I don't really do that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So
But
it's,
once I started applying it,
mhm.
everything changed. But I
Oh,
have a
totally.
question for you. So
Yes. Go ahead.
one of our viewers asked
Hmm.
me a question that's so obvious. You know, Isidore used to talk about obnosis, studying
Hmm.
the obvious. You know, that's where
Yeah.
all wisdom is.
Yeah.
And I guess one thing you and I haven't clearly addressed is this question. And I'm going to ask it to you, Dr. G.
Sure.
What is organics?
I
That
think
was the first teaching.
the fact that you laughed and I laughed is really kind of the core.
So
Was,
how would you describe it?
yeah.
I'm putting you on the spot. We don't
Well,
rehearse this, but
I'm going to repeat basically somewhat in a different way what you said. When you're living organically, you're paying attention to yourself and observing yourself and acknowledging what needs to be done energetically in the moment. I'll
mhm,
give an example. There's so many you could come up with,
mhm.
but recently I was going to show from the laptop to a bigger screen in a room, in a classroom. Okay. Uh, but I had a bit of a glitch the way I was pressing the buttons. I couldn't get the image from the laptop to the screen. Well, I went into one of those unhealthy energetic states.
Ah!
And I had a deadline. I have to get it done. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to hammer it home.
Right.
I'm making
Inject
a
me
very
with some testosterone.
yeah. Oh, and I could feel my bald head getting hotter. I could feel the heat, the pressure. I've got to do it. Uh, Fortunately, I say 20, 30 years ago, I probably would have just had to go home and go to sleep or a drink or something. You know, but I caught myself getting really fixated, and I just let it go. And I said, "There's other alternatives. I don't have to do it that way because that's how I plan. I planned it that way.
Mm,
Nice plan. It makes sense. People would like it probably.
hmm.
But as soon as I did that, I turned my head to the right, and there was a what do they call it? A channel changer type of device that had a thing on it where you could click it and it connects the TV to to the laptop, and it boom. There's
Boom.
technical terms for that, but and
Mhm.
it worked. I said, "Oh wow," because I was going to put it up on the board, and
So the understanding of how
yeah,
to proceed dawned on you in a kind of
yeah,
an organic way when you
yes,
gave it the time to do so.
exactly. So I was organic. I was being by trying be it by being more in the moment and observing myself and saying, I'm going against the organic flow of things, the natural flow of things, the natural order of energy,
Hmm.
because I was getting more fixated and tense. So I
Stuck.
was getting blinded.
Hmm.
And when you stay in that state a lot,
Hmm. Oh,
things happen and you attract stuff in your life that's not really very
yeah.
happiness bound.
Yeah. I think in somewhere Isadore refers to that as kind of a mechanical
Hmm.
rhythm rather than an organic rhythm. So one
Yeah.
aspect of organics is just aligning yourself with this feeling of your life force,
Hmm.
being flowing through what you're doing in a way that feels natural,
Yeah.
getting in touch with the natural feeling, the natural flow of doing things. Another aspect of organics to me is how things manifest organically.
Hmm.
When you have an intention and
Yeah.
I want to know how to do this thing, right?
Yep.
That plants the seed of the intention. Then every
Yeah.
now and then you come up and say, gee, do I know yet? Am I getting any ideas of how to get there and do that? That's kind of nurturing the seed. And then
Hmm.
eventually that intentional seed sprouts just like a flower in your garden, and you
Hmm.
get the knowledge that you're looking for.
Hmm. Hmm.
And circumstances manifest that way. You have an intention, you have maybe a visualization, you start taking action for it. You rhythmic, just like we have to be rhythmic when in the garden. You don't just
Yeah.
pour water on it constantly.
Hmm.
Pour some water, you take a break, let it absorb the water, then you come back and do it again. And organically and almost magically, miraculously, what you put out there starts to come back. It starts to flourish on the
Yeah.
material plane. It's all a natural order process. And when we live in harmony with that process, when we flow with that process, life feels so nice
Hmm.
and joyful and alive. And when we don't flow with that process, we're all crunched up and
Yeah.
blocked and frustrated.
Hmm. And it's something we can do something about, as we've talked about before.
Mhm.
You're not at the mercy of other people's opinions or family or traditions or belief systems. You can actually live organically and naturally
Mhm.
if you apply some of the basic skills that we've learned and
Mhm.
want to share. Isadore
Mhm.
shared, I don't know, decades.
Mhm.
It's pretty nice, but you have to do it.
Now, one of the things he refers to in his that first published book, Organics: The Law of the Breathing Spiral,
Yeah.
is the breathing spiral.
Hmm.
So, what comes to you when you bring that to mind? The
Yeah.
breathing
To
spiral,
me,
the
and of
law of
course,
the breathing spiral.
yeah, I mean, it's my verbalization, let's put it that way.
Okay.
I wouldn't say it's the one necessarily he would say, but one that I got out of it
Hmm.
was, of course, the breathing is the rhythm,
Yep.
in and out, doing this, doing that, going in this direction, but going in another direction for balance. But the spiral to me is as you go on a course of living, you come back around to another spot on the spiral. It's not a, it's kind of a circle that has a layers to it.
Mhm.
And now here's your opportunity. Are you going to handle it the same way you did last time?
Right.
Are you going to do it differently? And if you're paying attention, you have a chance to, maybe you don't get necessarily, quote, get rid of it. You
Mhm.
have an opportunity to learn more from it. And it's a kind of a turn of the spiral.
Mhm.
And to continue with that in that rhythmic way, you organically, like you say, the flower organically grows. Even a flower has that spiral, the leaves and the flower and the
Mhm.
petals, bit
Mhm.
of a spiral pattern there.
Mhm. Well, science has found that even lightning is
Hmm.
operates like a vortex. This is the
Ah,
image of the spiral,
yes.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the breathing part is really essential for each one of us to
Hmm.
identify our individual rhythm. And
Yes.
we notice what becomes a kind of adversarial toward that. For example, I'm an Aries,
Yeah.
so my first impulse would be to just rush forward and go as quickly as I can, right?
Hmm.
Which could
Hmm.
put a lot of stress on my system, right?
Yeah.
And
Oh,
take
yeah.
away my joy and cause, if you're pushing too hard, you get a lot of resistance back,
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
right?
definitely.
So for me, it's modifying or moderating that urge so that
Hmm.
I'm living in my feelings enough to trust the natural feeling of things, right? Now
Yes.
you're a Taurus. So
Yeah.
in your case, you might wait too long to take an action,
Oh,
right?
yeah. I can give lots of examples of that.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
I do
So
have in my chart like lots of fire. So I
uh,
have both sides. I have 5 fire planets. So I get Mr. Gung Ho sometimes. I
uh-huh.
call it Gung Ho. I'm going to go
Well,
all out.
well, yeah, but you'd be great at that and I want to talk
Yeah.
about
Okay.
Isadore's approach of energy and
Yeah.
organics and astrology, right? I have no earth in my chart, right? So it
Yeah.
took me time to just settle in and actually live in my body.
Yes.
And the way the spiral works, it's so
Yeah.
interesting how it depicts the way our life actually flows. So we start at the beginning and we start doing some, let's say, work on ourselves or work on a project, and we start making progress. And then what happens? We start facing some resistance.
Hmm. Hmm.
Challenges set in. And
Yeah.
in those, we have an opportunity to learn and find new and better ways of dealing with the low, not giving up, persevering, being
Hmm.
willing to change how we're doing things. And as we learn our lessons in the low, that takes us up to a higher high, where our next low is higher than our lowest. And it always goes like this. It's never
Hmm.
like just this straight line up. Aha, I've got the answer. Boom. You're going to go
It's
up
ongoing.
night and day,
Yeah.
the rhythmic alternation of the universe.
And that's the law part. I mean, you can count on it. If you apply it, it proves itself over and over and over again, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
Start to
Now,
go, wow, this is fantastic.
did Isadore ever share with you this diagram?
Uh, Off the top of my head, I don't recall it, but
Not
it
necessarily.
looks
Well,
great.
he taught it. It's the way to achieve goals fast.
Hmm. Hmm.
So here's the self and here's the goal. And you
Hmm.
just align your feelings, actions, speech, and thoughts
Oh, no, I've never seen that.
with
No.
where you want to go.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how
That,
you get there fast, right? But look at how much, but going back to the original thing we read here, look at how much awareness is required.
oh,
I've got to watch my feelings,
yeah.
right? I got to
Vigilance.
watch my actions. It's so
Yeah.
easy to drift off into sidelines and detours, right?
Hmm.
I watch my speech. I bring about what I speak about. Isidore stressed so much how much energy we waste
Uh,
in pointless speech and negative speech, unconscious speech. I got to watch my thinking,
yeah.
you know. Vitvan talks about how people think they're living in the physical world, but they're actually living in their head.
Hmm.
They're living in their mental story about their life instead of being present,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. We tend to make up stories or scenarios. One that I recently made up was, yeah, it's not just one, there are many, but I try to slow down how fast I go along with them. I like to paint rocks. Did I talk about this before?
No, I
Okay.
didn't know you do that.
Yeah, just for fun. It's a
Mhm,
nice little thing. You paint them with a little design on it. And
mhm,
I put them down by the river where I walk because I saw other painted rocks and I was inspired a little bit by the what do you call it? The sand paintings by the Tibetan Buddhists where they make it and then they just let it go.
Yep, they
And I
dump it.
said, yeah, I'm gonna let it go. Well, it didn't take long for me to realize I wasn't letting it go.
That's the Taurus. That's the Taurian.
Yeah, so I would walk by a week later. Oh, it's not there now. So then I started making up scenarios in my mind. I hope they really enjoy it. I have a positive and a negative. I'll tell the negative
Uh-huh.
one next. That just automatically started rolling through my brain. And I started laughing because I'm a little more aware than I used to be. But years ago, I would have taken it seriously. Okay, so oh, they have it in their house and they probably like it. Maybe they gave it to their kids for a gift. They would put it in their garden. It went on and on.
Mhm.
Then the other one was they probably didn't like it. They wanted to get rid of it. Maybe they threw it in the river.
Right. And so you pick yourself up and then you put yourself down.
Right. So that was where you start making these scenarios up. And then ultimately, I did let go of it a lot.
A
Maybe
lot,
not,
which is
maybe
a
not
lot
100%.
for a
For
Taurus, it's
me,
a lot.
it was a lot.
Right. Right.
And I just got into the enjoyment of just doing it and letting it go, doing it and letting it go.
And part of the letting go process is noticing how am I affecting myself with my
Mhm.
imagination?
Yeah. And it was affecting me.
Yeah, am I tormenting myself? Look at all this energy I'm wasting, and
Mhm.
the reality, and it's really kind of unconscious abstracting because I
Yep.
don't have the data. It's
Yeah.
insufficient. Isidore used to use the phrase ID,
Yeah.
insufficient data. You remember that
Insufficient
one?
data. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I
Insufficient
really don't
data.
know. Why am I jumping to a conclusion?
Yeah. It was,
Right?
and I was observing this, and I really encourage people to observe
Hmm.
self-observation because
Hmm.
you learn so much. And at first, I'm going like, wow, I can't, what the, huh? Who
Hmm.
cares?
Hmm.
But it was going on. Once I
Right.
start letting it go more, I was more organically in the moment with that process,
Right.
painting, leaving, enjoying, not holding on to. I was getting more closer to the Tibetan Buddhist sand painting feeling. I wasn't quite there, but I was a lot better than I was when I started. So I wasn't imagining much anymore. It was just there it is. Now it's there. Now it's a
Well,
couple months later.
yeah.
I was talking to a student and he saw one of my painted rocks. He said, oh, you paint rocks. Are you a member of the Reno Painted Rock group on Facebook? He says, there's 6,000 people who are on that. They paint rocks, they put them somewhere, but then they see them and they move them purposely someplace else.
Now that's a story that never occurred to you.
No. And that's something like probably happened. No, against insufficient data.
Yeah.
But when I heard that, I said, that makes complete sense.
Right.
Then I went on the Facebook page and I saw, yeah, I picked this one up and I moved it to Sacramento. This one I moved down the river. So it's kind of a thing,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but
But
it's enjoying.
Isidore used to draw as well. Like if we look
Yeah.
at the cover of this wisdom book,
Yeah.
these are his actual drawings.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. I
Remember,
remember
he used to
those.
put those on his
Yeah.
notebooks.
Yeah.
And again, we see the spiral,
Yeah.
right? And the serpent, which represents wisdom, the
Yeah.
wisdom of the spiral. The serpent also suggests the fact that if you're not doing this properly, you're going to get stung,
Oh, yeah.
right? You're going to
And
get,
every so often, when I was younger, it was more often. Now it's less
yeah,
often,
right, right.
but I do get stung. I mean, and I go, wow, I just wasn't aware of it that much. And I can't believe after all this, I mean, inner talking,
Yeah,
all
yeah, yeah,
this time. And I
yeah.
go, that's something new to work on. That's a turn of the spiral, like you described. The resistance came up. I've sort of I more or less embraced the resistance now rather than resist the resistance.
Mhm.
Go, wow, okay, that's something to take a look at. That's
Right.
something energetically I could work through or around or up and down, but learn to handle it, transmute, transform,
Yeah.
all those kind of skills. And so it gives you a new opportunity on the spiral to
Well,
actually expand.
and one of the things that I loved about his teachings was that the universe is all about, we get the word university from universe, right?
Mhm,
So the
mhm.
universe is really a university for our own transmutation.
Yeah.
We get to try something. If we observe the results, then we can step back and say, okay, maybe there is another way.
Oh, yeah.
How can I deal with something like this a little bit differently? What
Hmm.
change do I need to make in myself that set me up for the problem? And
Yeah.
little by little, that's how we are transmuted into a wiser levels of mastery.
Hmm.
Right?
And I have to say that relative to my character, my enjoyment level started to increase. My happiness level would increase. Understanding, compassion, all of those type of qualities of spiritual frequencies, I was experiencing them more often on some level.
The higher
And it was
frequencies.
very fulfilling,
Yeah.
very energetically fulfilling in a very natural way.
Yeah. And one of the things I've learned is to trust happiness,
Hmm. Hmm.
to trust just living in a harmonious vibe. Um, because that radiates out as a harmonious, orderly force field that
Hmm.
goes into my physical body to bring order. Health is a state of order, unhealth is a state of disorder,
Hmm.
radiates out into my circumstances. And it starts just without me even making effort, harmonizing my whole life, just learning to maintain that state by staying aware of it, staying aware, being centered, being balanced, being relaxed, being neutral consciously,
Yeah.
not slipping into unconscious thinking, because unconscious thinking could be stinking thinking. It could it could turn me into a negative state. But
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
learning to trust that state of just
Hmm.
peaceful, happy buoyancy, and goes, oh, that's my natural state. That's
Hmm.
my harmonious vibe. That's where I want to stay, and never projecting the cause of leaving it outside
Hmm.
of me.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You don't have to force anything. You more or less attract, if I can put it that way.
Hmm.
It unfolds and almost miraculously at times,
Yep.
to the point where I laugh internally, like,
Hmm.
oh, okay, whoa, all
Yeah.
right, thank you, thank you,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
I'll,
I started to discover that my state determines my fate.
that's right. I
Right?
go with that. Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
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 My statement. Yeah.
Yeah. That circumstances in my life manifest consistently with how I'm feeling. If
Hmm.
I'm feeling a sense of lack or scarcity or inadequacy,
Hmm.
let's say I'm feeling bad about myself, I'm going to
Hmm.
manifest someone who's going to come over to me and insult me. Right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a reflection, like an echo.
Yeah. And so that's something to remember too when you do come up against something that seems uncomfortable or a challenge, because there's a tendency to want to be right and blame someone, blame someone else. I mean, it's some kind of deeply rooted issue that a lot of us have. And when you catch
Ego.
yourself doing that and let it go
Mhm.
and realize, okay, what am I emanating?
Right.
What's my energetic state? You take some responsibility for it, which leads to transmutation, transformation, a new way of doing something or slightly changing how you look at it.
Yeah.
And it makes a big difference.
Yeah. It's looking at reactions not
Mm.
just as an effect of what happens, but as a cause of what's going to happen next.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like how I react is going to influence what's going to happen afterwards. You can drop something that you really like and
Yeah.
you feel really bad about it. Well, you just kind of compounded the problem.
Yeah.
If you
Exactly.
can just let it go.
I've done some art projects over the years, only picked for things that uh, I thought were kind of informative of learning to unfold in organics. And what you just brought up gave me the memory of I did a series of art pieces with a gallery opening and all that kind of thing on what would you call it? I had a term for it, but inner self-cursing, I called it self-cursing.
Wow.
And I would actually do a thing where that's the words they use. I can't believe I did that thing,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and you curse yourself.
Yeah.
And
Self-attack.
yeah, and so over the years, I started catching myself do that from time to time.
Right.
Oh, I dropped a jug of water on the kitchen floor.
Right.
Oh, what an idiot!
Yeah.
It just boom.
Learning to be more
Now I
compassionate
go,
with yourself.
I dropped a bottle of water. So what? It's
Right.
wonderful.
So,
Look at
and
it,
that goes
beautiful.
back, like Vidvan talks about
Yeah,
how we react to the value we give something.
yeah,
The values are all made up.
yeah.
Right.
And of course, I started passing the word around, and people started sharing with me. And we kind of started joking and laughing about it. Like one time my son was driving to Vegas with his friends and they had a flat tire. So he took a picture and sent it to me, but on the phone he was swearing. I hate driving to Vegas. Yeah. It's just the whole thing. And I'm going, oh yeah, can I use that in my art project?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's a merit. You manifested it. Thank you very much.
And
Yeah.
so anyway, it became a joke, but those are the kind of things we get caught up into. And
Oh, one of the aspects of organics that you and I have talked about, I don't know if we've talked about it in the podcast, uh,
yeah.
is organic education.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
So you're a teacher,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts about organic education?
The main thing that I got out of from Izzy was if you start forcing people to learn, like there's a certain cycle of learning that's individual to every person, like a fingerprint or a rhythmic cycle of breathing, or something that's unique to that individual, their structure, function, order, and you start making them all fit. Say it's a group of 30 people. Next week we have a test.
Right.
Must all be ready to memorize this test. So there's this intellectual learning. I don't know if I even call it learning, forcing,
Hmm.
as opposed to, you know what? Maybe we'll move the test to another day. If there is even if there is a test, maybe we'll get rid of the test.
Hmm.
And you accept the fact that the students are going in a direction that's more organic, more of a feeling tone, and you don't have a linear way of thinking
Hmm.
about how it has to be.
Hmm.
And that's a lot of what I do when I learn whatever I'm learning. I
Hmm.
say I'm not going to just force it and ram it down my throat.
Hmm.
Let me organically move along a little bit here, a little bit there, then a big bite, and a little bite, and nothing. Digest, that type of thing. Am I getting toward what you're thinking? Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that's what when I went back to school, and then my one wonderful advisor said, "No, you're going to stick with me for the next 5 years. You have a natural ability to teach." She saw the organics because that's
Mhm.
what she came to after 40
Right,
years.
right,
She
right.
said, "Wow,
Yeah,
I don't know how you do that, but that's exactly what more or less I do because you have to teach organically. You can't teach like a straight arrow.
yeah, yeah,
You have to feel the
yeah,
class, feel the energy." Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Feel where the student is at,
Yeah.
and you work with where the student is at instead of against where the student is at,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, I have a student right now. I'm teaching temporarily in what we call environmental science, filling in for a former student of mine while they're having a baby. And the one student was rejected by the teacher across the hall. They didn't get along. So she came to see me today and she said, "How's that so and so doing, that guy?" Beautifully. In fact, I already gave him an A for the semester. I gave him an A. Yeah, he's so productive. I said, "Here, now the pressure's off. Go for it." I
Right.
showed him a grade book. There's an A. Now, if you don't come to class, I mean, I can't, you know,
Mhm,
keep it up, but you will.
mhm,
And there we go. So he just was beaming with relaxation.
mhm. Yeah.
And I saw him apply himself like naturally on his own. Like, I'm really going to look at that today. I don't even say anything. You can
Mhm,
see he's starting to find a rhythm,
mhm,
what he's learning on his own, when he's taking notes, when he's sitting there. He's not talking to a lot of other people all the time, being distracted. But you could see a change. And I told her about that today. She said, "What in the world?" Well, I got him out of my class. The shirt style, and she's a lovely woman, but her style is more what you learn.
mhm.
You're going to not non-organically teach,
Mechanical.
mechanical teaching.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mechanical teaching. Yeah.
And
For me, the organic education was one of the greatest blessings ever because
oh,
it
yeah.
taught me how to learn.
Hmm.
You can
Yeah.
apply it to learn anything, anything.
Anything,
And
anything.
it really follows the pattern of what Isadore would call seed, soil, and fruit.
Yes.
So if you're going to teach someone something,
Hmm.
you present a little bit about it. That's the seed. And
Yeah.
then you watch the student or you watch
Hmm.
yourself. This person is starting to get turned off.
Yeah.
They've had enough. It's time for rhythmic alternation. They've
Yes.
taken the flower has taken as much water as it could take. Step back,
Yeah.
the time to digest, come
Mhm.
back to it later, making sure that there's always a harmony between teacher and student.
Yes.
Without that personal harmony, once there's personal conflict, the defenses are up, the
Oh,
learning
yeah.
is possible.
Building that connection, that
Yeah, so
relationship.
if there's
Yeah.
anything you can learn rocket science, you can learn
Mhm.
anything
I
if
was
you
thinking about maybe learning how to build a submarine. No, just kidding.
no, it's true though.
You
And
could
and
though.
and it's so to me, it's a combination of rhythmic alternation
Yes.
and progressive approximation,
Yeah.
which we talked about a little bit earlier
Oh,
in the previous
that
show.
stuck with me strongly. In fact, I've had people say to me, well, you seem like you get a lot accomplished. How do you do that? And I'll actually say, in tiny steps.
Right,
I don't really think about it as a big project. I
right,
do a little bit, then I rest.
right.
I can do this now, I stop.
Mhm,
Go over here and do this. I look back and to me, it doesn't seem like much. It just seems like that's what I did because I was organically learning.
mhm.
But some people go, that's a lot of stuff. How do you keep doing that? I don't really think of it that way. I think of the law of progressive approximation, which I taught my son, and he loves it. He's a Capricorn.
So
He
how
just
would you, we've talked about it before. How would you summarize the law of progressive approximation? What does it mean?
my relative to my way of seeing it, I
Mhm,
would say something has to be accomplished because you want to, or maybe it's some part of your job or whatever it is.
mhm.
And you look at it in small bits, not one giant day, one giant hour. If it's going to be due for some reason as part of what you're learning at your job or whatever it might be, 3 weeks from now, do your best to avoid starting at midnight the day before. And once you start doing that, it's not a big deal because you're not really working that hard,
Right.
really. You're just enjoying the moment. And I feel like, okay, that's enough of that for now. I think I'll go do this. But if you do it in a time frame, it's a STEM universe, and you see what you've got, you really sort of start with it a little bit ahead of time. Because I'm doing this temporary fill-in, I needed to do grades for the end of the semester. But there's all kinds of little technical steps you have to go through. Oh, yeah, we'll help you with it. Their attitude was like, we'll show you the night before. Knowing the STEM method, space,
Mhm,
time, energy, and matter,
mhm.
I just gently, without pushing, would start asking about 2, 3 weeks ahead of time.
Mm,
I did have to back off a little because they were thinking like, why is he talking to us about something 3 weeks from now?
mhm,
Because I was using the law of progressive approximation. I had to be careful not to force it on them because they were looking at me like kind of odd.
mhm,
So I just went to this one, then I went to that one. I went in a very natural.
mhm.
So by the time I got to the 3 weeks, I wouldn't say I had it mastered, but I knew the steps.
Right.
I knew how to work through it without a lot of stress.
Yeah. You
And
learn.
that exactly. So that, I
Yeah.
mean, that's just one small example. You
Yeah.
can do that to anything.
You can learn anything
Yep.
you need to
Yep.
learn, including like if you're a parent, how
Yeah.
to relate effectively with your child.
Yeah.
You know, you
hmm
just paying attention, following that natural rhythm. If you
Yeah.
have a question, you think about it, you observe a little bit, and then lo and behold, it starts to dawn on you how to work with this particular child.
One of the wonderful things that Izzy brought up that I really hadn't heard of before, I think I intellectually read a book about it, but he calls it the law of three. Do you
Yeah.
remember that?
Oh yeah.
Three forces in every relationship. Of course, I read that for years and said, oh, that's a wonderful idea.
Yeah.
But there was one time I said, do I really do that?
Mm-hmm.
When I started to attempt to do it and got a little nudge here and there, it was like a revelation.
Oh my goodness. I actually remember when I woke up to the
Yeah,
law of three. So there are two
yeah,
things I want to, cover in our
yeah,
time remaining, because we brought up the law of three and we brought up the STEM universe.
yes,
So let's start with the law of three. So
yeah,
as I understand the law of three, as I apply it,
mhm,
kind of a continual circuit of awareness where
yes,
I'm aware of myself, I'm aware of you. I'm
mhm,
aware of the relationship between the kind of energy exchange that's going on
yeah,
between us. And working with that consciously, I
mhm,
remember when I first awakened to it, I realized, wow, I can actually steer this conversation in a harmonious direction
yeah,
just by being conscious of these three elements instead of just getting, as Isadore would use as an example, just getting, like, for example, so caught up in what I'm thinking about and what I'm talking about that I don't notice the person I'm talking to is like looking at his watch and wanting to get away and
Yeah,
completely disinterested,
yeah,
right? Because
yeah,
I violated the law of three.
yeah,
It gives us the ability to direct the relationship in a more harmonious way.
yeah. It's a pleasure when you're beginning to work with that on a regular basis because you establish so many wonderful connections. Some really get nurtured a lot and grow more, and others are just a little bit. Today, for example, I was walking around the classroom, and one guy had his head down and he was sleeping. So I went, as I walked by the table, I went, let him sleep. They went, what? Yeah, he's tired.
Mhm.
It's a Zen thing. If you're tired, sleep. If you're hungry, eat.
Yeah. And you're building in that moment of respecting his needs,
Yeah,
you're building that harmonious foundation
yeah,
that allows education to actually take place instead of conflict,
yeah.
discord,
Wake up, do your work.
right,
No.
right, anger, frustration from the teacher, from the student, and it radiates into the classroom,
Hmm.
and it's no fun at all,
Yeah.
right?
I know when I first went to this class, which I'll have about a couple more weeks to go, I said, do you guys prefer to work on your own or do you prefer for me to lecture? They didn't say anything. They had a big
Mhm,
wall went up, like, well, most teachers want to just tell us, but they didn't say anything. I said, I get it. I'm going to set it up so you guys can each, everybody pretty much follow your own. You work on this PowerPoint over here. I'll come around the room and talk to everybody a
mhm,
little bit. I
mhm,
see you working in natural groups. So that's fine. That's
mhm,
collaboration and communication. Law of three in action
mhm.
because they're connected. They have a relationship.
Mhm.
So I took that approach. We'll see what happens, but my
Well,
classrooms are happy. They're
well,
happy. They're
well, that
laughing.
brings up a really interesting point. So
Yeah,
some people, would say, yeah, but that's not the real world. You got to do what you got to do. It doesn't matter. And the reality is, those are the most miserable people who
yeah,
are usually dealing with financial struggles, health
yeah,
struggles, relationship
yeah,
struggles, because it's actually not the way to live.
yeah,
Way to live is in a harmonious, natural way that
yeah.
permits you to enjoy each moment. And in that flourishing of yourself, you find your life flourishing beautifully. But they've been so trained and dogmatized to
Yeah.
believe that you got
Well, I
to,
love the word dogmatized. That's a good
yeah,
word.
yeah,
Yeah,
it doesn't
yeah,
matter how you feel. You got to
yeah,
push through it, get into the
yeah.
real world,
Suffer.
be a miserable human being, and become depressed and take antidepressants. And that's the way to be.
Yeah.
And I think that's when we're talking about tuning in to the energy
Yes.
level, I think
Yes.
that's the shift that people are no longer enslaved to dogma,
Hmm.
willing to observe what's happening in the now and trust their feelings of harmony to guide them along their right path.
Hmm. And just to give acknowledgement to the wonderful organic education that Izzy applied, and I think it was a math teacher for many years.
Math,
Sometimes I used to think,
radar,
wonder what
yeah.
his class was like. I bet he had a great math class. I guess I don't know, but those kind of training and sessions that we had and readings and that would run through my psyche, my thinking, my feeling as I walked by this young gentleman who was dead tired. Let him sleep.
Mhm.
There you go.
But you can't fight nature.
Yeah. What am I going to browbeat him and have him memorize something in 10 minutes? I'll give you a quiz? No.
Just so somebody can tell you you did the right thing,
But
Okay.
yeah, so
So the law of three is
yeah,
basically being aware of self, other,
yeah,
relationship between, but actually observing that process,
yes. Oh yeah.
being
And
guided by
feeling
that sense
it,
of heart.
observing and feeling. Yeah.
Okay. Now,
I built
step,
a little bit of, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, I just want to see how much time we have.
Oh,
So
good.
STEM universe,
Yeah.
that's appropriate. I'm looking at the time, STEM.
Yep. That's a
So
biggie.
how about talking a little bit about Izzy's Biggie,
Yeah.
STEM universe? Your thoughts about that? How we apply that, how we bring that into daily living.
For me, I would start off by what space am I in?
Space. So
And
STEM represents space, time, energy, matter.
right.
Those are the four basic coordinates.
Because I'm doing this on a daily basis right now, I walk in the classroom and I feel the classroom,
The space.
the space. I literally feel it.
Mhm.
Feels comfortable. It feels too hot. It feels too cold. It feels too much light,
Mhm.
too much this, too much that. I note that.
Mhm.
So I turn the lights down. I might turn the heat down. I might rearrange the desk a little bit. I get a feeling in the room. And of course, you can apply this to any space
Mhm.
in your life.
Mhm.
And then I look at the time. I literally look at the clock. And I, even before I get there, I measure what do I need to do this morning that would be most effective for the students today.
Mhm.
I don't always remember them, but I usually have a little list or have a little note. And so if I get there at a certain time, I've got about, I can do all of that comfortably without rushing in 30 minutes. And I do that on a daily basis. And I do that in my, just even if I'm home all day, I start thinking, looking at that.
Mhm.
The time that's available to accomplish what you need to accomplish, or it seems like you need to accomplish.
Mhm.
And then what kind of energy do I have? I generally walk into school with good energy. I'd say 90% of the time. I'm walking in there like, I wouldn't say pumped up, but I'm pretty jovial.
Mhm.
I say hi to people. Again, the law of three, building relationships, and wonderful allies start to happen in the school from that just naturally. So energetically, and I pay attention to that throughout the day. And I do that when I'm just home doing whatever I'm doing.
Mhm.
And then matter, what are you moving or not moving materially? Okay. So it might be going back to the classroom again, it might be where the chairs are, where the things are, stuff on the floor. Somebody dropped color crayons. It was a project they were doing all
Mhm.
over the floor. They left the room. At first, I went, they should have picked it up, but so what? I'll pick it up.
We'll deal with it.
That matter that was on there could have caused an accident, could have crushed into the floor, but I said, just let it go. How long? You just bend down. You can do it yourself.
Mhm.
So what?
Mhm.
Am I kind of giving a good example? Do you think
Yeah,
that would
yeah,
make sense?
that's one angle,
Yeah. There's many ways of doing it. Yeah.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Another angle is when it comes to decision making or making
Oh,
choices.
yeah. Yeah.
Like, let's say someone says, let's go out to eat. Let's go to this restaurant.
Yeah.
So first I consider, the space,
Hmm.
okay, does that space feel harmonious to me? Is that the kind of, maybe what I really need is to sit in the garden for a little while. Maybe I need a different kind of space, you know? And then I would look at the energy,
Yeah.
do I have the energy to do that? Is
Hmm.
that going to feel like it brings me energy, or is that going to feel like it brings me down in energy? And then I
Hmm.
look at the time. Do I really have enough time to do that? Would I
Yeah.
have to rush to be able to do that and then go to the next thing? And then I
Yeah.
look at the matter, like what are the material conditions in that place?
Yeah.
Is it dirty? Is it dark? Is it crowded? Is it indoors? Is it outdoors? The things that I'll be dealing with. So when you make a decision,
Mhm.
he called it reasoning by coordinates.
Yeah.
The four basic coordinates before you're going to do something, you consider the space aspect,
Hmm.
consider the time, how much
Yeah.
time it's going to take, because you always want to make sure that you're giving yourself enough time to do what you're going to do in a calm, conscious, careful way, rather
Yeah.
than trying to squeeze it in, because that
Yeah.
builds that stress and creates chaos. So then how does it affect my energy level? Does
Yeah.
it feel like it's raising it? Does it feel like it's lowering it? And as far as matter, it could also be, financial.
Oh,
You know,
yeah. Yeah.
how much money is it going to cost me to do that? Do I feel comfortable spending that money on a meal right now?
Yeah.
So just
Exactly.
practicing reasoning by coordinates instead of, oh, that's a good idea. I
Hmm.
like restaurants. Or a friend asks you to do something. Say, well, a good friend would do it. Yeah, but I'm going to go into a space that's going to be dangerous. I don't have
Hmm.
the energy for it. I don't have the time for it. And I don't have
Yeah.
the money for it.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm getting an associative memory here because this brings back to the law of three. And the people that know me, 90, high percentage of the time, they feel comfortable to call me or tell me, I really don't feel like doing that now. And I go, okay. Sometimes they go, they were afraid to even bring it up. Well, I've committed to it. I can't say I can't now, and I don't want.
Mhm,
Most of the time, I say, fine, we'll do it another way. And a lot of times, I have backup plans.
mhm,
This
mhm,
one doesn't go this way, it could go that way.
mhm.
Those
Well,
three plans.
that also brings us back to, the need to develop the ability to live in the present.
Yeah.
You might make a plan with someone, 2 weeks ago, but
Yeah.
when you're actually in the present moment,
Yes.
things have changed to such an extent that it
Exactly.
would be too costly to do that right now. It doesn't make sense in the present that every single moment, every now is new.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's
What
one
you
reason I feel comfortable most of the time saying to someone, I know we made plans 2 weeks ago to do such and such, but I'm a little under the weather or my energy level is very low. I don't say I'm going to alternate, but in my mind, I'm thinking I need to do some rhythmic alter. I need to take a nap. I need to whatever to rejuvenate. And a good friend usually says, that's fine. We can do it another time.
hmm
That's building of a law, the
hmm
relationship, the law of three with
hmm
someone.
hmm
And it's a wonderful experience to have that kind of freedom. And the people
Well,
that you will
yeah.
do that with, they really appreciate it. I mean, they do it. Wow. Okay. This is great.
And then the resistance to that, the challenge to that is people who
Yeah.
have been so dogmatized again
Yeah.
to think you said you're going to do it, you have to do it. It doesn't matter how you feel. Doesn't matter what the coordinates in the
That's
present
a good one.
moment. I don't care. You said you were going to do it. If you don't do it, you're a bad person and you deserve my abuse.
Sounds like you're describing my teenage years.
I'm actually describing my previous marriage, but but no, that is the
Bob,
race
you were
psyche.
right all along. I know that.
But that's the race psyche. It's
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
ideas,
You
right?
get caught up in those patterns. Yeah.
Yeah, they just have an idea. This is the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And what we learned in organics, which set me free, is just pay attention to the now if it works. And what you find, people say, well, that's not practical. It's entirely practical. It actually does work.
It does work. Yeah. And of course, it's the proof is in the pudding. You put in the time and energy in a law of a law of progressive approximation way, you'll be fine. You don't have to do it all at once.
That's right. That's right.
Just lean back and do bits by bits.
I think Isadore once said, patience is trusting the time it takes.
So right on. It's like a
Oh, right
laser.
on.
Yeah.
So the last thing I want to touch
Yeah.
upon, if it's unless you have something that you
No,
wanted to.
no, I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm sure we're going to have to carry this on into the next episode and beyond
Sure.
that. Isidore's concept of PPPs.
Oh, yeah. Pressure points of the past. Is that what you're referring to?
Correct,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
So maybe you could talk a little bit about what that means. And did he used to advise you to do PPPs? How to get
Yeah.
rid
Well,
of those?
yeah, the write out method
Yep.
was one.
Mhm.
I took to the touch and let go method.
Touch and let go.
A lot of other methods available too,
I
but
teach something called the method, which is very different. Maybe
yeah,
one time we'll get into that. But so
yeah.
talk about PPPs. What is it? What is a
Well,
PPP
for
in organic?
example, I would say I was able to observe like I have a particular repetitive belief that doesn't really allow me to live fully organically, and it becomes obvious. Pressure point of the past, I get triggered because there's some memory. It could be whatever, growing up, family, societal belief systems. Maybe it was my religious upbringing. That's kind of a command phrase in our belief system. But I see that I'm triggered. So one method, he would give the touch and let go, which I wrote about, I think, in my one pendulum book. It's not a big deal, but you would simply write down what it is you're letting go, and you touch it and let go with your. Can you see that? Yeah, you can see me
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Touch,
So if
let
you
go.
let's say you're angry at someone,
Yeah.
you write down that person's name.
Yes.
Then you
Exactly.
take
There
your
you go.
fingers, you touch the name,
Yeah.
you allow the feelings to come up
Yeah. Yeah.
that you have, then you let go of the name and you let go of the feelings.
Yeah. Exactly. It starts to go
And you
away.
repeat. Right. So a pressure point of the past
Mhm.
is some kind of reaction pattern that we have based on a
There you
past
go.
experience. Something
Yeah.
similar happens in the present, and I'm reacting to the past.
Yes. Yes.
Isidore, I remember shared an example of that. He said if you had a relative when you were a young child who always wore a red tie, and every time he showed up, he would be somewhat abusive to you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you completely forgot about him. You forgot about the red tie. 40 years later, someone walks into your office with a red tie, and all of a sudden you don't like this guy
Yeah.
because of the red that your subconscious retained.
Yes.
So all of our automatic fear, anger, disappointment reaction, those are kind of all PPPs, aren't they?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And over time, I don't know what you experienced, but I actually almost started looking forward to discovering a new one.
Hmm.
Oh,
I know
wow.
what you
I
mean.
I didn't really see that before. Okay, there's a way to go.
Yep.
And I start feeling better about that. So,
Yep.
because I saw there's layers that go
Yeah.
on and new things or old things in a new way or new things you hadn't seen much before. So I almost basically say I look forward to it
Hmm.
through observation and being more conscious. Wow, that's fantastic. I mean, that's a way of liberation through there. It's like a
That's right.
doorway. Yeah,
Another thing to let go of, a recognition. Oh, I got hooked here.
yeah,
Well, I'm feeling anxiety. Oh, great. Okay. Let me release this anxiety in this situation. I've released all my energy from that. And now I can deal with the present as it is in a constructive way instead of being locked into that pattern.
yeah,
Whether it's a trauma pattern or something less powerful, but still gripping and taking charge of our energy, keeping our energy back in the past.
yeah. And when you do releasing the pressure points of the past, there's not anything you want to. I mean, I try to avoid criticizing myself. Or,
Mhm.
I'm not a bad person. I'm simply energetically not as sophisticated as I could be in
Well,
handling it and
yeah.
enjoy life even more. That's
Mhm.
more or less how I look at it. So it's not like there are some people, if you happen to bring something up, they might go, "Oh, wow, I'm terrible."
Mhm.
Oh, you make it worse.
Well, yeah, Viffen actually
Yeah,
used to say the biggest obstacle to self-development is the need to have a good opinion about ourselves. Because we're gonna be afraid to look at the lower stuff because we're
yeah,
gonna be critical of ourselves instead of, that's the whole purification process, freeing
yeah,
ourselves from the negative.
yeah. So I guess what I'm just to summarize how I'm thinking and feeling about it is it's an opportunity for transformation and even more joy and happiness. Something
Beautiful.
like that. Yeah.
Well, we've come to about the end of
Right.
episode 3, where we discussed the law of three appropriately.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, any thoughts, any suggestions for our vast audience? Because even if we only have any number of viewers, we know this is
Yeah.
going out into eternity, into infinity. We're
Yeah.
spreading the light of organics everywhere for all time. What would you like to share now that I put you on the spot?
I will just second that and leave it at that because that was wonderfully put, and that's tuning in, so people can tune in and enjoy their lives even more through some of the things we've learned and we're sharing.
Oh,
That's it.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a great joy to be connecting with you after all these years, sharing organics with the world. Greg,
Hmm.
thank you so much. Dr. G,
Yep. All
thanks.
power to your people.
More power to everybody watching this show.
Exactly.
Please
Yeah.
leave your comments below, and we'll see you next time at Tuning In.
Enjoy.
Enjoy.
Adios.
Thank you.
Bye.